up, a huge congratulations. Satyameva Jayate 2 is set to finally release on 25th November. I mean, I've noticed that over time, we've seen a lot of social justice stories which sort of make their way into the mainstream Hindi cinema front. Why do you think this formula is so successful when it comes to Masala films?
Well, since the beginning of time, cinemas, right from the Angry Young Man with Mr. Bachchan did, when he did Zanjeer and Lavaris and all the films that he did. Uh, when a hero takes on antisocial elements, when he fights for society, fights against corruption, against evildoers, wrongdoings, when he stands up for the common man, right, and he stands up for their problems, it has always resonated with audiences because somewhere they see themselves in that hero, right? Everyone can't take the law in their hands or mete out vigilante justice. But when you watch a hero, a superstar, do it on the big screen, it always gives you a sense of adrenaline. You cheer for that person, you support that person, you applaud that person, and that's a formula that has always been there. Whether it's Shahenshah, Mr. Bachchan did, or Andha Kanoon, or whether it's Satyameva Jayate 1, which was a fight against corruption too, that John embarks upon. So I guess that's why it's a trope of cinema, Hindi cinema especially, that's been so successful over the years.
And going by, I think, a statement that you had made recently, it seems like you're very much inspired by Manmohan Desai's style of films that were there in the 70s. I mean, so I guess that must play a really huge impact in the style of cinema you choose to back as a director as well, right?
Yeah. So I've been a huge fan of Manmohan Desai sir, Prakash Mehra sir, Rakesh Roshan, Subhash Ghai, Mukul Anand. These are the directors and their films who I grew up on. I went to cinemas and whistled and cheered and clapped when their films came, or when I saw them at home on video or DVD or LD. And they made cinema for the masses. They made cinema that cut across all religions, caste, creed, age, and it reached out to the common man. They gave messages while at the same time entertaining people through song, dance, action, comedy, drama, and it actually is the hallmark of Hindi cinema, right? Hindi cinema, however westernized we may get, or cool, or content driven we may get, the fact of the matter is the audience will always go to cinema for a larger than life big screen experience. Case in point being Suryavanshi, that came out 3 weeks back and has absolutely rocked at the box office, completely defying and destroying all the naysayers who said that audience will never come back to cinemas, and the pandemic has destroyed cinemas, and OTT is the only way forward, and mass cinema is over. And not only Suryavanshi, Master in the South, Upena, Crack, Vakil Saab, the Tamil Telugu films also this year proved, that commercial entertaining cinema is never going to go out of fashion. And if in fact that's the only cinema that's going to manage to get people into cinemas.
True. I agree that I feel like Bollywood has sort of, especially the crux of Bollywood has really sort of captured that notion of escapism over the years, and that has definitely been a really huge factor in bringing back the audiences. Is that why you were holding on? Is that why you and the team rather were holding on to Satyameva Jayate 2 and not securing an OTT deal as well? Because a lot of other commercial mainstream Hindi films, like Coolie Number One, for example, that they secured an Amazon Prime deal as well. So is that why you were sort of on the back foot a little bit to make sure that it has this theatrical release?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for films like Kudi Number One or Lakshmi, they were ready much earlier in the beginning of the pandemic. So maybe their producers, couldn't hold on because of financial reasons for a longer time, and they took the OTT route. But I was always determined and sure that I want to come in cinemas because, see, it's a kind of film. Satyameva Jayate 2 is a kind of film that you need to enjoy with an audience in the cinema, amidst the whistling and the cheering and the clapping. It's a community experience.
Yeah.
And that would just completely die on OTT, because you're sitting home alone with your remote and you're looking at your phone, and you can just pause when you want, and go do something and come back. That's not how these films are meant to be enjoyed. And see, I'll explain something to you. These
Sure.
films, the films I make, the films that Rohit Shetty makes, they
Sure.
don't always get critical acclaim, right? They're the critics, especially the English media, wait with sharpened pencils, to slash these films and criticize them even before they watch them. The justification and the victory, the triumph for such movies is always box office, right? The box office numbers are what give vindication to these movies. And that they prove that there's a huge audience out there for this cinema, which doesn't care a hoot about reviews and what critics say. So if a film comes on OTT, there is no box office vindication, right?
Sure.
Then you're at the mercy of only critics and ratings, and you really don't know how well your film has been received or not, because there's really still no algorithm or barometer that exactly can give you an idea of how much an audience watched your movie. Now Netflix, I believe, is come out with a website that's going to give more data on their films and viewing hours, but for the longest time it didn't exist. So my producers, I mean, hats off to them. I'm extremely grateful to Bhushan Kumar sir, Monisha Advani, Madhu Bhojwani, Nikkhil Advani, John Abraham, Divya, who stood by me, and they stuck by this film, and they said, no, this film needs to be seen on the big screen by an audience in the cinema. And they held on. And I've always maintained, through the last 1.5 years on social media, or whether it's on in interviews, that the day cinemas are allowed to reopen with occupancy and Suryavanshi comes, I said, you'll need an army to stop the audiences from entering cinemas. And that's exactly what happened. Like, they rushed to the cinemas when Suryavanshi came, proving that they want to go to see movies. And I mean, I'm grateful to Rohit Shetty and his team that they've kind of opened the doors for all of us to follow, and they've proved that audiences want to go to cinemas.
That is very true. And I am of the belief as well, and I've seen it myself, of how escapism really is the crux and driving forces of bringing audiences into the cinemas. But to what extent can this whole larger than life notion go on in mainstream Hindi cinema, Milap? Because like we said, I mean, life is changing. People have become so much more aware now. The influence of social media, the fact that the pandemic, of course, has really brought us to light with reality as well. But to what extent do you think this larger than life and very, even like, for example, in films like Satyameva Jayate, where you have like this very like vigilante style of a protagonist, to what extent do you think these narratives will be as prominent and as relatable with audiences now?
Till humanity exists and is alive, until humanity isn't wiped out by a virus, a meteor, or a bacteria, or any asteroid or such thing, only commercial cinema, only mass cinema will work. And not only in India, worldwide. What are the biggest hits in Hollywood this year? I'd like to ask. Shang-Chi, Fast and Furious,
Suicide
Godzilla versus Kong, James Bond, Black Widow, right? So the biggest hits are all Hollywood mass films. I mean, what is the Marvel Universe? The Marvel Universe is a mass universe.
Yeah.
The Marvel Universe is a suspension of disbelief, right? Where if you ask me, the M for Marvel also stands for Masala. Right? It does. Because Marvel films, the way critics in India hit their head against the wall when they see a Satyameva Jayate or a Rohit Shetty film, the same way over there they hit their heads when they see Marvel films. Because Marvel films come and just whitewash and take over the market and the box office. And the one time that they tried to make a kind of intelligent superhero film in Eternals, it's really not done the business that any of the other Marvel films have done. And the moment they got arty and a little cinematic and deep and philosophical about a Marvel film, right? It led to Eternals, which I enjoyed still, but it wasn't half as fun as Shang-Chi or any of the other films. So if you ask me, it's never going to go out of vogue. It's never going to. The box office successes will always be the commercial entertainers, And however much critics or the English speaking media would like you to believe, they will never be out of fashion. The common man, the mass, the actual ticket buying audience of India will always go to see their big stars on the big screen do unbelievable things. John Abraham will keep ripping apart tires, breaking tables, carrying bikes, because that's what the mass of India wants to watch. They will always want to watch Singham, Simba, and Suryavanshi. That will never go out of vogue.
And I'm glad you mentioned John actually here. I mean, he is someone who is, I mean, extremely special to me and to Filmi Shinmi as well. And he's, one of the finest actors I think we have in our generation. And he's a lovely human being too. It's wonderful because we're going to be seeing him in 3 different avatars in Satyameva Jayate. So where did this idea come from? Because it's been a while since we've seen an actor sort of play multiple roles, not double roles, but multiple roles. So why did you decide to feature this sort of trope for John's character in the film?
Well, initially it was a double role when I wrote it. It was 2 brothers, Satya and Jay. One on the side of law, one taking the law in his own hands. And but when I started writing the role of the father in the story, I realized that it was the best role of the film. So I called John and I said, the father is the actual hero of the story, not the sons. Yeah. So I said, how can you not play that role? Because if any other actor comes in, he'll have the best role in a John Abraham film. So I said, it has to be you to play the father too. And there have been instances in the past where Amit Ji, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, Kamal Hassan sir, Rajnikant sir have done triple roles in films. So and I've grown up on those films, right? So it was an exciting idea for me. I said, when I can give audiences 3 Johns for the price of 1 ticket, why not? And that's how the entire idea came about.
Right. And were you fascinated to see how he was able to explore these 3 different shades of characters as well in the film?
Yeah, it was extremely exciting. And when you see the film, you realize he's played Satya, Jay, and Dada Sahib differently. He's brought in a different kind of performance to each character. And it was extremely challenging for him and for me. But to his credit, he's pulled it off. And I think when you all watch the film, I think you all will be the best judge of, deciding whether he's managed to pull it off and whether I've managed to pull it off.
Great. And I think also, Milap, we were talking about the commercial Hindi cinema. And I think hearing your insight and your experience and your tryst with that cinema is quite fascinating. And I know, again, Satyameva Jayate 1 had quite a lovely soundtrack. I mean, I think obviously Dilbar like sort of broke the internet. It's still even now a bop. I still listen to it. And now you've got Kusu Kusu, you've got the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan song
Meri Zindagi Hai Tu.
Meri Zindagi Hai Tu. There's obviously Lehenga as well, which is a very popular Punjabi track. So I think when it comes to enticing audiences to the cinemas, do you feel like there's an onus now on almost every commercial film to include a sort of recreation or a very popular number now to bring back the audiences? Do you think that's become a very
biggest?
Yeah.
Dilbar obviously was a phenomena and it broke all records, etc. But if you look at it, the biggest hit of Satyameva Jayate 2's album is Kusu Kusu, which is an original song.
Yeah.
It's the number 1 blockbuster of the album. It's an original song. Meri Zindagi is a recreation of a Nusrat Saab song, but it's not a very famous Nusrat Saab song. It's not one of his, most known songs. Lehenga, of course, is a huge one. But the other song that is really climbing the charts and is being loved is Jan Gan Man, composed by Arko, which is an original song again. So see, it's a mix of all, right? Sometimes there's great comfort in the familiar. Sometimes it's great fun when something new comes. So it's like a thali, right? There is a little bit of everything in it, and as long as the entire thali is delicious, that's important.
Right. And I think it's only in recent times, Milap, I feel like you've begun helming as in actually directing these sort of masala films. You've written quite a few, I think, in your career. So, I guess this is always, so I guess, for you as a director, because your first directorial, if I'm not wrong, was Masti Zade, which was...
Jaane Kahan Se Aaye.
Oh, Jaane Kahan Se Aaye, that's the one, which was, again, an alien sort of comedy film, which was actually almost like a coming of age film, which, again, I think Nikkhil Advani was on board for that as well.
Nikkhil produced it, yeah.
Yeah. So what was So I guess this must have been a long time coming for you then, right? To sort of helm films like Mojava, helm films like Satyameva Jayate. Has it always been on your mind to just make sure you sort of live your sort of dream of making masala movies?
Well, honestly, after the failure of Mastizade, I really had no choice. I had no work, and
Oh
nobody was
God.
ready to work with me. And John was gracious enough to say yes to Satyamev Jayate, and what it did at the box office changed my life. But yeah, if you ask me, it's I'm living a dream, right? I'm like a child in a candy store, right?
Hmm.
I'm getting to make the films I grew up watching, the genre I grew up loving and admiring, whether it's Satyamev Jayate or Marjava or Satyamev Jayate 2. Touchwood till now audiences have loved the Satyamev Jayate and Marjava, and I'm hoping they love Satyamev Jayate 2 also, so I can continue doing this. I can continue making massy commercial entertainment, because those are the films I like watching. They're the films I have the most satisfaction in making, and I really hope that this I get to continue doing that.
Right, right. So, I mean, that obviously must is out there. I mean, I can imagine it must have been quite difficult. Obviously it was, um, yeah. I mean, that's a film which I think even Vilas has mentioned a lot. I think in his comedy stints as well. But how did you cope with that? I mean, the failure of that film. Did it? I mean, it must have affected you a lot, right, in terms of your self-esteem and your confidence. So, how did you cope with that down phase?
Well, I guess you have to pull up your socks. You have to accept reality. When the film failed, I had to accept it, and the industry obviously made sure I accepted it. I didn't have work for a long time, for almost a year. The only two people who gave me some work was Monisha Advani, who signed me, who bought the script of Marjava to produce at that point,
Oh
and Rohit
wow.
Shetty, yeah, and Rohit Shetty, who gave me an assignment of writing the Ranveer Ching commercial, which he directed. So I wrote that, and that was the only work I had for that entire year. And then I guess I just put my head down and I wrote, and I made a short film called Raak on YouTube that starred Veer Das, Shad Randhawa, Richa Chadda, that got a lot of accolades. And I wrote the script of Satyamev Jayate, and I was fortunate that John Abraham gave me time to listen to it, and he loved it, and he said, yes, I'll do it. Then Manoj Bajpayee and Bhushan ji and Nikhil and everyone else followed, Monisha Advani, Madhu, and that film then came and did great at the box office, and it kind of changed my life. So I look back at the tough times with and I know that tough times can come back again also. So
Mm.
you have to always be positive. Always, you have to be the same person when you're doing well or doing badly. You cannot change
Yeah.
as a human being. So if you're the same person when you're doing well, people will support you when you're doing badly. If you change and become ridiculously arrogant or badly behave when you're doing well, when you fail, the people will clap, applaud your failure, and they will take pleasure in seeing you fall. So I just think the most important thing is to be positive. I have a great family. I have a lovely wife, Gauri. I have a lovely son, Nehan. I have my in-laws, my parents, my best friends, who are there with me, and they always keep me motivated.
That's so wonderful to hear. Very wise words there. But I think on a final note, obviously the film will be releasing alongside Antim as well, which is another very great masala film, which I think everyone is waiting to whistle at. I can already just imagine the sort of reception that
Yeah.
both films are going to get in the cinemas. But often, whenever I'm on Twitter and I read two films coming together, the word clash is often used, a box office clash,
That's
or
clickbait.
yeah, or really, I was gonna literally say to you, I mean, how do you feel about that tag? And do you think that because of how badly cinemas have been affected as well by the pandemic, do you kind of feel like now there's plenty of space and uh time as well for big blockbusters to actually coexist in cinemas now?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a clash, first of all, because we're
Yeah,
coming one day before them. We're coming on a Thursday, they're coming on a Friday.
yeah,
And see, I'm very grateful to John, who's been so gracious. He's, tweeted the promo of Antim. Salman Bhai has been amazingly gracious. He's tweeted the Satyamev Jayate 2 trailer.
true,
They
yeah.
met on Big Boss with Divya, and Salman Bhai was wonderful to John and Divya and to the film. I think in his own events, he has said, told audiences, please watch both the films. So
Oh,
I just think it's a great that audiences have two good films to choose from, and more the merrier. And because we are coming one day before, People can go and see our film on the first day. They can see it's Antim on Friday and our film, and see both films in the weekend and the week. There's really no clash, right? Because it's one family, it's one industry. In the past, films have come on the same day. Satyameva Jayate itself came with gold. Both did great. Mission Mangal and Batla House came on the same day. Both did great.
I
So
remember.
yeah, there's no really. I mean, I think there's enough space, enough shows, enough screens for both the films, and I really wish Salman Bhai, Ayush, Mahesh sir, all of them the best of luck for Antim.
Yeah, it's interesting as well you said that, because I guess it is about the industry, right? And it's also about, I think, reviving the cinemas and sort of getting that whole machinery running again. And so I guess there must be
Yeah,
a
that's
balance to
exactly
that.
what Salman Bhai told me when we spoke. He said, Milap, it's important that we promote each other's films. It's important for cinemas that both the films do well. And he said, I really liked your trailer. And he said, I'm going to post it. And I mean, it was magnanimous and wonderful of him and John, to come on the same platform for each other. And I think that shows the spirit of the industry, and that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, Milap, I think it's great to finally see you know, commercial Hindi cinema back in business, quite literally. I think Suryavanshi has really sort of instilled this sense of hope, I think, within the audience's hearts and minds. And I think seeing Satyameva Jayate hitting the theaters on 25th November is going to be a great blast. It's going to be a great communal experience. And I just can't wait to see my dearest John on the big screen as well again. So wishing you all the very best and congratulations on the film, and to you and the team as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Milap. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.